a Yemeni girl aged 10 and divorced. Hello, this is Christina Choi. Today's Global Citizen story is about a courageous Yemeni girl who got divorced at the age of 10. It might sound odd that a 10-year-old would be divorced. This story is a true story that took place in a country called Yemen. Yemen is an Islamic country in the Middle East, on the southwestern end of the Arabian Peninsula. It is one of the poorest countries in the Middle East due to the delayed development of the oil and natural gas industry. Also, it is a country that strongly protects its distinctive disposition and cultural traditions. The story begins with a scene where a barefoot young girl wearing a black burqa is sitting in the courthouse and crying. The girl, desperate for help, took the bus alone to come all the way to the courthouse, but was at a loss as to what to say to whom. She had been crying for hours when all of a sudden she heard a man's voice. "Child, why are you crying here?" This man was Judge Mohammed Al-Gada, and the young girl's name was Nujood Ali. Seeing the judge's kind eyes and voice, Nujood took courage and asked, "Is this the courthouse that helps people in need?" He answered, "Yes, it is. What's the matter?" "I want a divorce. Please help me." The judge took pity on the girl's desperate cry for help and encouraged her to tell her story in detail. Nujood's story went like this. Nujood was born in a small rural Yemeni village as the fifth of 11 children. At the time, she was 10 years old. Although she was from a poor family, she was an ordinary second grader who enjoyed drawing and playing tag with her siblings when she came home from school. Then one day, in February 2008, her father married Nujood off to a man in his 30s for about $1,000 because he couldn't find a job and the family became destitute. Nujood had no idea what marriage was, and although she wanted to keep going to school and stay with her mom, she was shocked and sad to suddenly become the young bride of an older man. In Yemen, 1 in 4 girls get married before they turn 15 years old. Since men pay a large bride price to the bride's parents, poor families marry off their young daughters to older men because they need the money. In Yemen, you can have multiple wives if you have some money. So young girls who are sold into marriage work like slaves, bear children, are beaten when they don't obey, and are even kicked out of the house when they are no longer of interest to the husband. But these young girls have nowhere to go because their own parents don't accept them for being abandoned by their husband. They are sometimes even subjected to honor killings for dishonoring their families. After getting married, Nujood had to do all kinds of house chores during the day and was sexually assaulted by her husband at night. Technically, there was an unwritten rule that no matter how much you pay for your wife, you would only start sleeping with her after her body matured. But It was mere prattle without practice. And even they broke the rule, there were no legal consequences, leaving the young girls with no protection. Nujood appealed to her mother-in-law, hoping that she would help her as a woman. But her mother-in-law just beat her even more, saying that her family didn't raise her properly. After suffering for 2 months, Nujood finally received her husband's permission to visit home for half a day, saying that she missed her mother. When she came home, she appealed to her father, but to no avail. He angrily said, "If you come back, we have to pay him back. And not only do we have no money, but all the neighbors will point their fingers at you, and our relatives will kill you." She clung to her mother and cried, "Please don't send me back to my husband." But her mother responded, "I know how you feel, but this is the reality for all women in Yemen. Your sisters, aunts, and grandmothers all lived like this." As her last hope, Nujood visited Dola, who was her father's second wife and the only one in the family who opposed Nujood's marriage. At the time, Dola was living separately and begging in the streets to feed her child. She taught Nujood, "The only way you can come back home is to go to courthouse and get divorced. If the courthouse grants divorce, your husband won't be able to do anything." Although Dola lived a very poor life, she had a warm heart. She gave Nujood the $1 that she had made from begging all day to pay for the transportation. Nujood used this money to pay for the 4-hour bus ride to the courthouse in Yemen's capital, Sana'a. This was the first time she had ever taken the bus, and she went all by herself. She was scared to death that her husband and family would find her, but she had to muster up courage in order to escape the hellish marriage. But once she arrived at the courthouse, she burst into tears because she had no idea what to do. This is when Judge Al-Ghada noticed her. After hearing about the girl's dire situation, the judge first detained her father and husband and provided protection for Nujood by allowing her to stay at his acquaintance's home. Then he introduced her to a female lawyer named Shada Nasser. Shada Nasser was a lawyer who helped women in Yemen. "Nice to meet you, Nujood. I'll help you from now on. So no matter what difficulties you face, don't ever step back and just keep moving forward." She knew very well how difficult and dangerous it was to get a divorce in Yemen, to the point where a woman could lose her life. Nasser became Yemen's first women's rights lawyer after seeing the horrible situation that women were in when she volunteered at a prison serving female prisoners. When news broke out that Nujood had filed for divorce, her family, village, and even the entire country was in an uproar. As people who believed that a woman's fate was determined by her father and husband, they were outraged by Nujood's rebellious behavior and could not forgive her. How dare a woman file for divorce? A 10-year-old girl at that? She was blaspheming against God and disrespecting their traditions. People, including her family, threatened to perform an honor killing. Nujood was terrified, but Nasser said, "I'll help you to the end so that you can get divorced. Be strong. There's nothing to be afraid of as long as you are with me." Nasser embraced Nujood, helped her through the difficult trial, and defended her from people's accusations and threats. Finally, on April 2nd, 2008, Nujood won the trial and was able to obtain a divorce. Nujood was able to go back to elementary school and come back home to do her homework, draw, and play with her siblings. After becoming free, Nujood had a dream. "I want to become a lawyer like Shada Nasser to help those in need." Nujood's story became known all over the world. In that year, Nujood and Nasser both won the Woman of the Year award by a famous US women's magazine. In the following year, in 2009, they were invited to the Women's World Award ceremony held in Vienna. In response to this incident, the Yemeni parliament initiated a law to protect young girls by raising the minimum marriage age to 17 for females. As a result of a small and powerless 10-year-old girl's lonely and difficult struggle, millions of girls were able to be saved. Before Nujood, no child could stand up against this injustice and press charges. Thankfully, the 3 judges and 1 lawyer heard the girl's cry and returned her human rights that had been taken away by male adults. This story shows that even a young girl can push back against the yoke of tradition in order to restore human dignity. Although there was strong opposition from the majority, far more people around the world supported the young girl. Nujood's story was published as a book in France, and Hillary Clinton, who was the US Secretary of State at the time, said that she would sponsor Nujood if she ever wanted to come to the US to study. How can we give support to these young girls? But if you want to help someone, you need more than good intentions. You need to put it into practice, just the way Dola gave all the money she had raised from begging for the day. We also need to strengthen our ability and willingness to care like Judge Al-Ghada, who didn't ignore a young girl's tears, and like Attorney Nasser, who used her legal knowledge and expertise to help the girl at no cost. Her story of success and hope also belongs to those who were willing to give what they had out of their compassion for others. Which story of hope do you want to be a part of? Whose voices do you want to listen to? And what kind of hope do you want to give your attention and effort to? Today's story was about the story of Nujood Ali, the 10-year-old Yemeni girl who helped to change the world with her unyielding courage. Thank you. Global citizen stories are not biographies that cover the entire life of a particular individual. The purpose is not to share every aspect of one's life, but to share certain inspirational aspects.